have to be looking even more further as we create more businesses out there, or is this something that's really gonna help?
Yeah, so we built the base model and then we looked at additional demands, and I don't know off the top of my head which slide it is, but there's a slide where we talk about near-term development that has yellow squares on it, and so those are the areas where we consider development. So there's two very large tracts of land just east of I-35, so by the HEB and then north of Como Road. So we looked at those things being fully built out. And then we looked at the proposed development at the end of Athol Lane. So they're looking at putting approximately 256 houses in there in phases. So we assumed the full 256 houses. And then, I-35, the business loop, has a lot of development already along it, but there were some areas of land where we thought maybe someone might come in and put something in there that would have a demand, and so we planned for that as well. So that's all been included in these sort of near-term improvement impacts.
Council, any other questions?
So I just have a comment.
Yeah.
So with this, I've been pushing this for many years, and now that we found the monies to pay for this water study, we all want Pearsall to grow. And this is very, very important, a model study that we hadn't had in many, many, many years. And this new businesses coming to town and subdivided homes coming to town, it won't get frowned upon no more because we have utilities. When you don't have utilities, they don't come. So this is one step closer to where we're seeing Pearsall grow, and I'm very excited, and I can't believe this is coming. A reality.
Let me just add one thing, and she did the engineering part, and the person that knows a little bit something about money and finances is right behind her. She also worked for C.D.M. Smith. But I'll give you an idea of kind of, well, the question is, well, this is great, but how do we end up paying for this, or how do we go about moving forward, right? So Stacy's gonna maybe fill you in on a little bit, just you can give her a couple of minutes.
Sure. So there's a couple of things, and that's my background is I used to work for the Texas Water Development Board before moving over to consulting. So I used to oversee a lot of the federal and state funding that comes through Texas. Good morning. So basically, there are a lot of different programs that have received the bipartisan infrastructure law funding last November. A lot of the funding for water is being funneled through the state revolving fund programs in Texas, through the drinking water side and the clean water side. At least 49% of those funds that go out the door for the next 5 years need to go out as essentially transfer forgiveness or free money as grants. The other part, it is a loan matched program, but it is a low interest loan. There are some projects that can also get up to 100%, but that's more focused on emerging contaminants. So, but what I would say is for a lot of these projects, there's no reason why. In fact, we already did submit some of the projects to the SRF list earlier this year. That was a small part of the task order that we had for this project. But I think with the new projects that have come up here, there's no reason why I wouldn't consider at least putting adding these projects to the list also, because you can see what they're willing to offer you, and if they don't have funding year one, as I mentioned, it's going to go for 5 years in a row, so you might be able to phase them in over time and be able to get a lot of the projects taken care of with some principal forgiveness or grant money included to make a lower cost to your ratepayers to the city. So.
Council, thank you, Stacey. And hats off to the previous council that put this study in place. This is huge. Councilman Rodriguez and Councilman Carino, great questions, and this is going to advance us down the road just for that. The key component of this, of course, is the cost, and right about budget time. As you guys probably know, that we're required to put a water line as part of our annexation of 35. That's going to require funding, and so that's where Stacy comes in. Timing was good, again, with the infrastructure bill. We may be able to get some lower rate money or grant money that may help us for drill along, but shortly we're going to try to get some estimates together so that we can, identify, and talking with Stacy and Wendy earlier, we may not be able to do every aspect of increasing the lines or building new lines or perhaps a new water well, because all of those are going to add substantially to the cost associated with it. But something needs to be done in order for us to move forward. So timing, again, the previous council that put this together, hats off to you guys for forward thinking and being proactive on getting this study done. We're gonna also hear from, engineer Leonard Young, and he's gonna talk about a drainage, study that, you know, also some things that we really need to look at and consider. And then shortly to follow is our comprehensive master plan, to put it all together. So you guys are gonna kind of get inundated with a number of projects that are all worthy. We're probably gonna have to identify what's critical, you know, and where we get the biggest bang for the buck. And as we look at our budget, as far as our revenue and our current expenses, all of this is gonna require us going out to seek bond money of some sort in order to pay for this. So that, you know, and then where do we get the money to make those, payments? So anyway, thank you guys, lady, very much, very professional, very exciting about this report. This is draft number 1, so there'll be some other stuff. And council, they've said if you have some input, anything you want them to look at, I think they'd be happy to tweak it in any way and get you guys the data you want so we can make a decision. That being said, council, any other questions for CDM Smith? Ladies, thank you guys. You're welcome to stay, or if you need to head out, you're welcome to do that. Okay, thank you. With that, folks, we are gonna go on to item 5C, discuss and consider accepting the draft city Pearsall drainage master plan prepared by Young Professional Resources. This is an action item, no longer needing any introduction, because Mr. Young. It is an action item, folks, so I tell you what we're gonna do, we're gonna let him make his presentation, and then we'll consider motion in a second later, but, Mr. Young, you have a floor.
Thank you, have these, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Mr. Reyes. Again, I'm Leonard Young. The name of my company is Young Professional Resources. We're out of Windcrest, Texas, and we're one of the engineers that you selected to, along with CDM, to provide you engineering services. I have with me tonight, next slide, please, Mr. Jaime Noriega. He's my vice president, and he's the senior project manager for this project. Then also have Sharuk Muhammad. He's the design engineer for my firm. I'm going to give a portion of the presentation, and then Jaime will do a portion, and then I'll come back. And I'm going to try to simplify this. You just went through a modeling for water models. What we are doing on this project is a drainage model. We're doing essentially the same thing. We're looking at the drainage issues you're having within your city and modeling to see what can be done to take care of those issues. Next slide. So our attempt is to provide you with a comprehensive evaluation of your drainage conditions, your existing drainage conditions throughout the city and portions of your ETJ. What we want to do is present an accurate understanding of the city's drainage infrastructure. We want to provide you with potential solutions to resolve the issues that we identify. We want to give you an inventory of the projects. In our report, we provide simulations just like CDM did for the water. We actually do models or simulations. So we'll provide you that. We identify the problems and the cause and the source of the problem. Also, we looked at, okay, what are the problems? What projects can we develop, and what are the costs for those projects? So that's included as part of the master plan. Next slide, please. Again, in December of 2020, you engaged us and directed staff to develop a drainage master plan. We've completed a draft of that master plan, and we're here tonight seeking acceptance of that drainage master plan. Again, the master plan will do the evaluations and analysis that are required. We initially, when we started to look at the project, we identified 8 areas that were really of concern from the models and from staff. We've actually increased that to 10 areas that, are requiring some sort of improvements to it. You will take the final drainage master plan, much the same as the water modeling plan, and you will have projects identified. You can use the numbers we have to look at budgeting. How do you budget? When do you do these projects? Can you afford? What funding sources may be available out there to fund these projects? Next slide. To give you a little background, the city of Pearsall proper, within the city limits, is almost 3,800 acres. When we looked at the project, we not only looked at the city limits, but we looked at ETJ. So the area that we were looking at is about 4,800 acres. A watershed, and I'll give you a map in a little bit, to show you what a watershed is. Generally, the city and TTJ is about 645 feet elevation, and you have down slopes to the land. So what that typically does is when water comes into the area, you don't have those real steep drainage flows. You kind of flat level off, and your flows don't move as fast. So in those areas, usually you're going to have some drainage issues. Your annual rainfall is only about 24 inches a year, but we all remember 1998 and other events. We got a lot of water very, very quickly. And so when you do a model, you're looking at worst case conditions. So if you get those intense flows, you're able to carry the flows without, carry the flows and not suffer damages from flooding. Next slide. Would you please go to the next map? And I'm going to ask you to go back. This is actually the city, and these are watersheds. This is the area, all of the drainage areas within the city. Each color represents a different basin. A basin is an area where water comes in to that, and then it discharges out. So you have that throughout the city. Water doesn't go all into one place. It'll come in, go out, come down, and go around. That's what that represents, are those 11 watersheds or sub-basins that you have in a watershed. If you would go back to the previous slide. Just like the water model, there are standard models that are used to model drainage flows. We use that. We also made multiple visits to site prior to rains and right after rains to see what the condition, what's happening on the ground out there. Once we completed the model, we did our field verifications. We developed our projects. All of what we did, we had an opportunity to meet several times with Mr. Reyes and his staff. But we also, the city of Pearsall doesn't just do its work by itself. It has neighbors upstream, and it has neighbors downstream, it has neighbors on the east and west. And those people are the county, which we met with them and discussed what we were doing and what they were doing. The Texas Department of Transportation, they have responsibility in and around the city. If they have a choke point in their system where water can't flow through, then they need to take care of their problem. There's an issue near the wastewater treatment plant. that water flows into a county structure. The city and the county have been working together to clean that up, to clear that up, and it relieves flows. So it's not just the city, we have to look at all of the other folks who are involved. The Nueces River Authority has a responsibility downstream. There's a statewide regional planning group that Nueces River Authority heads up, or as the administrator. It includes Petula and the county and folks within the region. We presented that information to that group. They got to receive a draft copy so they could incorporate it into state plans. Once the plans are accepted by the city, we'll actually provide that group a copy of the final report. That's important because if you seek funds from state agencies, they want to see that you've done a master plan so that they know you're serious about what you're doing. You're not just asking for money, that you have a plan. And it puts you farther ahead of those communities who don't have a plan. You know, if you don't have a plan, you're gonna be the last one to get funding, when you start making those decisions. Next slide. Next slide. Again, that slide just shows, the different basins and how many acres are within the basin. Next slide. This slide represents kind of each dotted area. Those are the areas where you're experiencing the drainage problems, or where we're recommending projects be performed. Next slide. This is a listing of those projects, and I like getting to things as upfront, as close as possible. If we were to do all the projects, and you all know how inflation has been going and construction costs are going up, and we did not know exactly when they would build these projects, so we increased our numbers projecting out to build those 10 projects at this preliminary planning level is about $35.5 million. I'm going to turn it over to Jaime, and he's going to go through the 10 projects real briefly.
Good afternoon. My name is Jaime Noriega. So as Mr. Young was saying, that we, in discussing with the city, there was 10, we call them flood hazard areas, that we looked at. And if you want to go to the next slide. This is Colorado Street drainage improvement. We call it flood hazard area number 1. We have it estimated at $3.8 million. And it's basically to install underground stormwater trunk lines along Garcia in Colorado, and then outfalling doing the trapezoidal channel along South Puente Street. Next slide, please. This is Trinity Street, North Cherry Street drainage improvements. We called it flood hazard number 2, estimated at $8.1 million. And once again, we would be taking the drainage that goes along that street underground and then tying it into, there's an existing 2 8x7 boxes, concrete culverts on West San Antonio Street. Next slide, please. West Canal Street and FM 1581, there's a drainage channel there. So we're proposing the trapezoidal concrete channel and upsizing the existing culverts at the crossing at West Canal and West San Antonio Street, and that cost is $574,000. Next slide, please. West Peña and North Mulberry Street. The estimated cost is about $3.5 million, and then it's taking the drainage there that collects along that street and taking it underground, and then also tying into, there's an existing 10x4 concrete culvert on North Mulberry Street. So like Mr. Young was alluding to, we did look at current costs. We have projects that we've worked on in San Antonio. We have current bid items. We're doing some streets downtown, so we did take that into account with some of these prices. We did see, bids go up, sometimes 20%, 30%. So we did take some of the current bids that were just bid 6 months ago and added those costs to these projects. So, we did take that into consideration. We know that now that the prices have gone up, it's very likely